Damian Lillard, we got the report that his agent said if you try to trade for him and you're not the Miami Heat, you're getting an unhappy player. Does this mean that it's going to be Miami or bust for Lillard?
I don't think so. I mean, I would expect that is still the resolution. Maybe, it depends on whether it's several weeks down the line or not, because generally speaking, when it comes to star transactions in the NBA, where there's a will, there's a way, and where the star wants to go is where it winds up happening. It's just a question of what the Blazers are able to extract in that process, right? And where we are right now is basically just at a classic sort of staring contest. If everybody liked the deal on the table right now, it would be done. It would be over with. But Joe Cronin is looking at it and saying, Tyler Hero doesn't maybe do a whole lot for us when we already have Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe and Anthony Simons, and we need another place for Tyler Hero to go. And maybe if we can turn him into some first-round draft picks or another kind of young talent that fits our roster construction better. But then where is that third team? Where's the way station? Reports that it has been Brooklyn, reports that have been other teams that have been sort of saying, we'll get in there. We like Hero and we'll put up a pick for it. But now you're sort of sifting through what the marketplace looks like for that. And that's going to take some time. Joe Cronin is looking at it and saying, there's no clock on this, right? What tends to spur action in these situations isn't demands or reports about one guy will only go to one team or another or whatever. It's a deadline. And so at this point in the NBA calendar, we don't have one. We're looking at it could be training camp. It could be even into the season. We've seen that with Kevin Durant. We've seen that with Ben Simmons. These things can drag. The sunnier side, the more optimistic look is the entire league's about to descend on Vegas and all the decision makers are going to be there. So now if you're Joe Cronin, you can say, who is actually interested in this and where else might the actual offers be coming from? Who can we rope into this process and what sort of assets do they bring to the table? That can spur some movement too. But at the moment, I think we're looking at Dame wants to be in one place, but the Blazers are saying, you're under contract for 4 years. We are under no obligation to make that happen unless it works for us. And so now it's about making it work for them.
I know that Chris Haynes said that Dame doesn't want to go to Boston, but I see Jaylen Brown as someone that could be moved to go get Damian Lillard. It does kind of, in my opinion, make sense for both sides. Do you think Dame could be talked into Boston, or is that just an outright no?
My guess is that if I'm Damian Lillard, I look at that and say, if I'm landing in Boston, I need to be landing with both those guys. Because if I'm going there, I need to be in the best opportunity that I've got to win a championship. And that means as much talent as we can sort of still have on the roster. And Dame has said that in previous interviews. Like when you think about what star movement looks like, it's not just how do I get where I want to go? It's who am I playing with once I'm there? And is it a dramatically better situation for me? You remove Jaylen Brown from that Celtics team. Jason Tatum, fantastic. First team all NBA guard, swingman rather, and somebody that Dame has a relationship from Team USA. But you look at the rest of the roster. Marcus Smart's gone now. Kristaps Porzingis is there. He's had one really good, strong, healthy season in the last several. What does the rest of the roster around Dame look like there? It's possible that a Celtics team that was built on the strength of its defense and then like a high ceiling offense is a more consistent offensive team, but the bottom falls out a little bit on the defensive end. And you're still like in that mix of a couple of teams in the East that might have a shot at it as opposed to the clear favorite. So as we talked about, Dame does not necessarily have the opportunity to control that decision-making process, but I think convincing him would probably be more about how we construct a deal that gets you there with those two guys as opposed to Jaylen moving out the other side of it. And then if you're the Blazers, maybe you're saying, what good does that do us? We're not getting the young talent that goes back through the next handful of years that can build with Scoot and Shaedon, et cetera, which, it's tricky. It's advanced calculus at this stage. And right now, nobody's got the answer to the equation.
We're talking to Yahoo Sports senior NBA writer Dan Devine. So that being said, do you think there's any chance he stays in Portland, at least for the beginning of the season?
I wouldn't put it past him. Or past the Blazers at this point. I think that's the situation where we're going to learn how comfortable Joe Cronin and this Blazers front office is with being uncomfortable, to use that sort of parlance of you getting comfortable being uncomfortable. We've seen this happen now twice in the recent past. I mentioned it. There's the Kevin Durant situation last summer in Brooklyn, where Sean Marks, they didn't have a deal that they liked on the table at that point. And they said, we don't believe that Kevin Durant is going to come into camp and tank it or just say, I'm not playing. We don't believe that that's not who he's been in his career. It's not what his relationship to the game is. So we're going to say, we're going to bring it into the season and we're going to see if we can make something work, or failing that, find a better deal January, February. That's exactly what happened. A couple of years, or the year before that, season before that, Daryl Morey did not have a deal that he liked for Ben Simmons coming out of that disastrous Sixers-Hawks series.
Yeah.
So carry it into the season. And now that was a situation where it wasn't we're betting on him showing up and playing hard. We're saying we don't really care. And we're going to trust Joel Embiid to carry this thing and make us keep us a competitive team until the deal shows up that we like. That winds up being James Harden. A year and a half down the line, that's all going, up in smoke too. But in the moment, those guys said, we're going to hold on to what our assets are until we find a deal that's better for us. And they were able to do it. Joe Cronin, this is kind of his first big decision like this on the job, taken after Neil O'Shea. He spent a lot of his time early in Portland kind of undoing what O'Shea did and starting to build for the future. This is the big deal. So what is his appetite for that kind of discomfort? How steady is his hand on that situation? We're about to find out. But I think you have to represent at this point that you are willing to take it the distance. And that's certainly what he's doing thus far.
Dan Devine here with us. We had a debate yesterday when you look at the Miami Heat, if they got Damian Lillard with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, I would say that's a team that could absolutely win a championship. Perloff still doesn't think they could get through some of the teams in the Western Conference that they got to the NBA Finals. Do you believe that Miami, if they add Damian Lillard, is one of those teams on your short list that you would expect to win an NBA championship next year?
Yeah, no question. I mean, to me, and it's sort of it sounds a little bit counterintuitive. I wrote about this a little bit at Yahoo Sports yesterday. The Heat lost that series in 5 games, and what everybody remembers from the finals is Nikola Jokic unstoppable, right? Yeah. Jokic Murray 2-man game unstoppable. The reality is, though, they lost that series because they couldn't score. By the end of that series, they put up, and in game 5 of that series, they put up their worst offensive performance of the entire season with the season on the line there. And part of that is Tyler Hero's unavailable due to injury. Part of that was Victor Oladipo wasn't there to be able to give them some pop. But in this construction, Hero's gone, Oladipo's already gone to Oklahoma City. You need, and now your starting backcourt in that series is gone. Gabe Vincent's in LA, Max Strus is in Cleveland. You need an answer for what you do in the pick and roll, how you are able to attack these elite defenses in the postseason, so that it can't just be Bam Adebayo on the short roll, putting up floaters and hoping for the best, or Jimmy on a bulky leg trying to figure it out against double coverage, or a huge defender like Aaron Gordon. And Damian Lillard might be, last season, he was arguably the second best offensive player in the entire league. You look at the advanced numbers, you look at what he did as a pick and roll ball handler, as an isolation scorer, with his shooting efficiency, his playmaking, the turnover avoidance, all of it. No one paid attention because the Blazers stunk and weren't worth watching for most of it. But when you watch Damian Lillard, he was absolutely lights out elite. And you're getting him still age 33. His game should age well because of the shooting component and how smart he is as a facilitator. He would fit perfectly between Bam Adebayo as a playmaker in the high post and Jimmy Butler as that sort of screen and dive, slasher, cutter, all the things that Jimmy can do off the ball. It would be a perfect fit offensively. And I believe that between Jimmy, Bam, Spoelstra, they'd have the structure to be able to support Dame defensively. I think it's an absolute hand-in-glove fit. But you know who else thinks that? Is Joe Cronin and the Portland Trailblazers. And they're saying, you are going to pay through the nose to get that perfect fit. We're not just going to hand it to you on a silver platter.
Dan, who's your 4 in Miami? Who's your power forward starting next year? Am I going to have to see get to the playoffs and watch Aaron Gordon dunk easily over Gabe Vincent? You know, Gabe Vincent's gone. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
no one loves Gordon more than you.
I played basketball in high school and a little in college. A 6'10 guy against a 6'1 guy wasn't fair then, and it's not fair now. Miami is putting 6'3 guys, Caleb Martin's their power forward. Explain this to me.
I can't explain it to you, but what I can say to you is they feel confident structurally, schematically, that they can do enough to get through pretty much whatever matchup they need to get to where they get to that promised land. And obviously when they got there, the size, it was a huge impediment. And the only way they had an opportunity to win was to jack up the variance of the game, shoot a ton of threes, make a ton of threes. And you know who does that real well? Dame Lillard. So now the hope would be, if you're Pat Riley, Andy Ellisberg, that front office in Miami, that you're going to be able to, you get the big pieces in place and you find the other pieces along the way. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it's Haywood Highsmith that takes a step forward. Maybe it's by the end of the season, Jaime Jaquez is playing a bigger role on that team. You find your 4 along the way, as they did with PJ Tucker, as they've done with different guys in the past. Not always the case. They didn't find it last year and it wound up being Caleb Martin, and that team still got to the finals. So I think the question is, like, control what you can control on the front end, bring in the talent you can bring in, and then you figure out the other pieces around it.
I'm really distracted here real quickly, Devine. This has nothing to do with basketball. Is this wallpaper behind you, painting, or a fake background on Zoom? Because it looks really nice.
No. Oh, thank you so much. It is painting. I can't take any credit for it. It's my wife did the job there. But
yeah.
It was at one point a bright orange wall, and you know what? The vibe was not really great in the pandemic when we were constantly here. Was bright orange screaming at you all the way around us. Not so good.
Yeah, no. First of all, I could tell I'm married. Zach is single. Like, you didn't even have to ask. Of course, there's no man who comes up with a pattern that cool.
I thought that was wallpaper there for a second.
All right, Dan. Last question from me. Same question with the Sixers. Is there any chance James Harden is going to be there day one of this season?
And this is personal for Perloff.
I'm a Sixers fan, so I want you to answer this. Be very careful with your answer.
I would say it's certainly an opportunity that he will be there. I think the bet you would make is not so much that, like Kevin Durant and Dame Lillard, he'll show up ready to go on day one, because we've seen Harden show up when he wasn't happy and maybe look like he wasn't fully invested, shall we say, in Houston when he wanted on his way out. I think the situation you've got here is a little bit less that he only will go to one place. It might be that only one place really wants him right now. You know, we've had the conversation about the Clippers and the fit that he would have there with Paul George and with Kawhi Leonard. Where else around the league is really willing to give him the assets to pony up for that $35.6 million deal, knowing that he's expiring at the end of the season, he's going to go into free agency. You can't extend him off this 1 year deal. So you're looking at him as a 1 year rental. And so you think about James Harden and all he brings to the table, and it was an all NBA caliber point guard last season, led the league in assists, one of the only, I think, 3 players in the league to average 20 and 10. Phenomenal player, has shown the capacity to be that ceiling raiser in the postseason. We're not very far removed from him hanging 40 on the Celtics twice in the second round. The problem is the other 5 games in that series and all the other playoff games we've watched and all the other situations we've said he can't be the guy to bring you over the top of the mountain. So if you're one of these teams that's looking and saying, is he going to be that guy to bring us over the top? You got to be a little bit concerned about what you put on the table to get him there. And I think that's why we haven't seen the market for him develop quite so large. And that might take a little while to figure out. And Daryl Morey's willing to be uncomfortable, but James might be willing to make it uncomfortable on him too.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I'm not super optimistic this is all going to work out well. But, I'm a Sixers fan, so I know what it's like to go out in the second round.
Well, I was going to say you're also a Sixers fan, so optimism doesn't necessarily come naturally to you.
No. We're just happy the Eagles snuck in a Super Bowl win. We'll take that.